G'day guys, my name is CJ. Now it's been almost 10 months since I first got my hands on the Pixel 5, and now that Google has announced the Pixel 6 and we're seeing more details emerge from it, I thought I'd make a follow-up video about the Pixel 5 and how it stacked up after almost a year of being used. This is the long-term Pixel 5 review. Let's get started. Now to quickly recap, the Pixel 5 is more of a mid-range spec phone, which is quite a departure from the previous flagship roots of, say, the Pixel 4. It had a mid-range Snapdragon 765 chip, it lost its photocentric pixel visual core, and it lost the fancy motion sense sensors, and then opted for a cheaper aluminium build with a paint covering that made the phone lighter, feel a little bit like plastic, and most importantly, felt quite a bit cheaper than the glass slab that was the Pixel 4. Now it does sound bad on paper, but I'm actually a massive fan of what Google did with the Pixel 5. For one, the removal of the motion sense cameras meant that the fingerprint sensor returned to its best location, on the back. Its lack of an XL size combined with a lightweight body made it a super comfortable phone to use day in, day out, even with one hand. And despite its relative compact size, it still fit in a high refresh 6-inch OLED screen that had uniform bezels all the way around. And it was flat, thank God. On top of that, there's 5G, 6 gigs of RAM, still rocked a 4000 mAh battery, had fast USB-C charging, retained wireless charging, and it has reverse wireless charging too. Plus, it still had stereo speakers, although had some controversial opinions about that, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So for all its compromises, it was and it still is a pretty damn complete package. And so after all this time, exactly how has it stacked up? Well, to keep things short, really well. The Snapdragon 765 in the Pixel 5 has performed nothing short of great. Combine that with the smooth 90Hz screen and Google's software optimization, the experience has remained buttery smooth, and aside from me installing the new Android 12 beta with all its quirks, there's been no perceptible lag or drop in performance. Even now, up to 10 months since I first got it, it's still just as smooth, which is awesome. The old reputation of Android slowdowns and software jank certainly doesn't apply here. Then on top of this, the Pixel's version of Android has an AI-powered inbuilt battery saving feature, meaning after a few days to weeks of use, it'll intelligently leave the phone at around 80% charge overnight until it learns when you usually wake up, and then time it so it'll be at about 100% by the time you wake up. So by minimizing the amount of time the phone hangs at 100%, you'll end up preserving the overall lifespan of the lithium-ion battery itself, which in my experience has been really legit. There's been no significant drop-off in battery life with repeated use, and that in itself is an added bonus since battery life on the Pixel 5 has been one of its strengths right from the start. And that was a major improvement over the Pixel 4, which had challenging battery life to say the least. Now the Pixel 5 still gives me 5 to 6 hours of screen on time regularly, even with 5G turned on, and all of this even after a recent software update that significantly boosted the processing and graphics performance. So that made it an even more capable all-rounder for those interested in a little bit of gaming on the side. Now what also sits near the top of the pile is with its camera. Now it did sacrifice the telephoto lens for an ultra-wide, but for most people, I think the ultra-wide is a more useful focal length in my opinion. And I wish they kept the selfie hole punch camera on the front as an ultra-wide like we saw with the Pixel 3, but as expected, photos taken by the Pixel 5 in general are still some of the best photos from any smartphone. You get excellent dynamic range, excellent detail, and really accurate color reproduction. And that's even taking into account flagships released early this year like the S21 Ultra. There hasn't been any groundbreaking updates or changes since the phone was released, but then it didn't really need to. Its software features are still on point, and I'm still a massive fan of a lot of the unique features that you get, like custom scene lighting, where you can customize the strength and direction of lighting in the photo after the fact. Portrait mode photos are still some of the best with accurate subject detection and blurring. Details are on point, and in a pinch, the Astrophotography feature is still really impressive too. And on top of all of that, the video recording features are also pretty reliable, and it produces, some pretty excellent results. And a low-key shout out to the cinematic pan mode too. I can't get enough of that. The one slight weakness that we see with these cameras is actually thanks to the loss of the Pixel visual core. Now in older Pixels, this had a dedicated chip and it used to do most of the grunt work with processing photos, which is great because the time lag between hitting the shutter button and actually seeing the end result was way quicker thanks to the CPU not really having to get bogged down with all that algorithmic computational stuff. But not only that, the old Pixels with the Pixel core added an interface for third-party apps to tap into. So you could actually use the camera hardware to take better photos in other non-official Google apps. So third-party apps like Instagram and Snapchat would be able to take great photos like it came straight from the stock camera app. But now, compared to the older Pixels, photos and videos taken in these third-party apps are a little bit worse, and that's a bit of a shame. Now the other shame is in sound. I'm all for companies pushing the envelope with tech, and I love the fact that the 5 has a uniform bezel around the front. But one of the sacrifices that they made was that they implemented a display-based piezoelectric speaker instead of a proper physical speaker. Now it's fine for phone calls, but despite software updates, there really isn't any getting around the fact that it does the job of producing stereo sound, but the quality and the character simply doesn't cut the mustard. Watching videos, listening to music, consuming any content really with the physical speakers simply lacks that oomph and character that you get from some of the other flagships. Now sure, in a vacuum and without other phones to compare it to, it's absolutely fine, but when you compare it to iPhones or phones like the Galaxy S21, there's definitely a clear difference. But then you could argue that it's not really a fair comparison since the Pixel 5 was never really priced to compete with these guys anyway, but still something to keep in mind. Then finally, the phone itself has copped a bit of a beating and on the whole has fared pretty well. I've been using the black version and sure, the plasticky paint coating makes it feel a little bit cheap, but it also means I'm far less inclined to baby the phone. It's actually quite liberating not needing to worry about what I'm doing or how I'm carrying the phone, and sure, there's a few faint scratches on the body, but God knows how many times I've dropped this phone, and thanks to the lack of glass, well, you don't see any unsightly smashes, which is pretty great. On the front, it uses Gorilla Glass 6, but as with all glass phones, it's still pretty scratch prone and there are a few blemishes on the screen, so pop a screen protector on there if that annoys you. But other than that, the Pixel 5 has been a pretty reliable mainstay in my arsenal of phones. With a guaranteed 3 years of software support from Google, it's still an excellent choice for those looking for an excellent all-rounder that will last the distance. And now that the Pixel 6 is on the horizon, chances are you're going to be able to find a Pixel 5 at a price that won't break the bank, with plenty of discounts on it. But in any case, what do you guys think? If you own a Pixel 5, how is it going so far for you? I'm really keen to hear how your experience has been. In any case, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, give us a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out. Stay safe, guys, and of course, I'll catch you in the next one. And of course, say good day, mum for me. Cheers.